Hello and welcome again to our Lent Reading series for 2023, considering people who encountered Jesus. Today is day 34, and the crowd are being given a choice. Who should be released, Jesus or Barabbas? We met Barabbas briefly yesterday in the reading about Pontius Pilate, who was under pressure from the Jewish authorities to pass a death sentence on Jesus. We read Matthew's account, which calls him Jesus Barabbas, but in the other accounts he's simply called Barabbas, and that's what we'll call him here. Pilate was reluctant to condemn Jesus, and he saw a way to escape his predicament by invoking the tradition of releasing one prisoner as part of the Passover celebrations. He brings out Barabbas and asks the crowd to choose between him and Jesus. We're going to read Mark's account today, which is found in chapter 15, starting at verse 6. Now it was the custom at the festival to release a prisoner whom the people requested. A man called Barabbas was in prison with the rebels who had committed murder in the uprising. The crowd came up and asked Pilate to do for them what he usually did. "Do you want me to release to you the King of the Jews?" asked Pilate, knowing that it was out of self-interest that the chief priests had handed him over. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to get Pilate to release Barabbas instead. "What shall I do then with the one who is called King of the Jews?" Pilate asked them. "Crucify him," they shouted. "Why? What crime has he committed?" asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him!" Wanting to satisfy the crowd, Pilate released Barabbas to them. He had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. Few stories in the Gospel are recorded in all four accounts. Apart from the crucifixion and the resurrection, there's just a very select group that you can find in all four Gospels. It includes the feeding of the 5,000, the triumphal entry on Palm Sunday, and also the story of Barabbas. Barabbas seems to have been a well-known prisoner. Maybe the word notorious would be better. He'd been involved in an insurrection against the Roman rule that had left a number of people dead. In Luke's account, he is described as the leader of the rebellion. He'd been captured and was in prison awaiting execution for his crimes, when, suddenly, and probably completely unexpectedly, he's brought out before the crowd. Pilate probably assumed that because Jesus had been popular with the crowd, that they would rather release him than Barabbas. But he was mistaken. The Jewish authorities start stirring up the crowd to support Barabbas. Knowing there was a resentment of Rome's occupation, they probably used the enemy of my enemy is my friend idea to win the crowd over. The crowd asked for Barabbas to be released and Jesus to be crucified. Pilate, being surprised at their answer, asked for the reason, and on what charge should Jesus be executed. But they just shout all the louder for Jesus to be crucified. And Pilate gives them the request they ask. Jesus is led away to be flogged before crucifixion, and Barabbas is set free. Consider this for a moment. Barabbas is a rebel, a freedom fighter. He's been found guilty of his crimes and has been sentenced to death. Jesus, on the other hand, is righteous and innocent, but dies in place of Barabbas. Barabbas goes free. What an amazing summary of the gospel. A condemned man who deserves sentence of death is set free, as an innocent one is crucified in his place. In that sense, we are all Barabbas. Until next time, have a blessed day.